We are back at it again. And we're always innovative here at Disqualified Opinions. Look into our name. It's very counterintuitive if you ask me. But it's great content, great everything. And y'all have come to love and know about Storytime. But amongst us on this show, we always say the word allegedly. And that's what this segment is now called. And what better way to kick it off than with DC. He came up with a great topic. I'm going to let him tell you about it. And it's something that will definitely stir the pot and hopefully get some clicks.
So, it's a thing about marriage, right? Is marriage in today's society an outdated concept? Is it still something that's relevant? Is it still something that we shoot for as men, as women, people our age? Is it something that is still considered a goal in life?
We got Ro, we got Roz, of course, DC, and we got another special guest joining us back here in the man cave. But we welcome all. Roz, introduce your guest.
Well, I've seen her on here before. Well, y'all haven't seen her. But, in due time, we'll have people, sitting somewhere in this little kind of corner that we got going on here. We'll start bringing people on once y'all get to love us more. We want y'all to see the main faces before we start introducing y'all to these other people first. But we got my friend Alex here. We go way back like 4 flats on the Cadillac. Introduce yourself, Alex.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Alex. Thank you. Lovely to be here.
I guess we got to start ladies first. What is your outlook as a woman on marriage? Is it outdated? Is it necessary? Is it something that you strive for in your life?
Are you single? Are you looking to be married? Do you have an age where you want to be married by? All that good stuff.
Okay. So I would definitely say, like, when I was younger, that was, like, my main goal. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids. I didn't have any career goals. I mean, I was never dumb, but I just was like, oh, I'll just find a job. And then, like, getting married was, like, the main thing. But now, I could care less. I'm single. I'm not really looking to be in a relationship. If I end up in one, that's fine. But if I'm in a long-term committed relationship, I feel like, why wouldn't we get married? I feel like if you're in a long-term committed relationship and if y'all are, like, building a life together, then marriage is the next step. But I definitely don't think that it's something that's required, and I definitely don't think that it's right for every relationship. And I definitely think that there's some people who are in long-term relationships where, like, it makes sense for them to not get married and they just want to be together forever, I guess. But for me, that's not going to work.
I have a question really quickly, because I know a lot of times women will put a timetable on when this transpires. So is there a certain allotment of time that you have to talk to a dude, and if he doesn't propose to you at that certain point, then there's no point in moving forward?
I would say yes. Well, I feel like it all depends on the relationship, right? So one of the things that, like, I'm thinking about now, and, like, me and my friends talk about is, like, as far as, like, how old you are, I definitely think it matters. Not necessarily like, oh, after 1 year or 2 years we need to get married, but just thinking about, like, I have friends who are, like, now buying houses, who are, like, moving to different areas, who are getting full-time jobs, and it's just like, so if I'm dating somebody and I'm establishing a life by myself, then, like, how long are we going to continue to just, like, build our lives separately? Like, at some point, I feel like it just makes sense for us to, like, start building a life together rather than, like, having our own things going on, if that's ultimately the goal. So I feel like if you're older, like, let's say you're, like, in your late 20s or in your early 30s and you're starting to make, like, those kind of lifelong investments, then the timeline might be a little bit shorter. But I feel like it all depends on your age. Like, if you're 19, then it doesn't really make sense for you to be like, oh, you need to marry me in 3 years. But if you're, like, 35, then I feel like a 3-year timeline makes more sense. So I feel like it's really more about where you are in your life rather than, like, a strict time frame. Because there's people who've been together for 10 years and they're still not married, but it's because they got together at 15. And to me, that's not crazy. But there's some people who've been together for 10 years and they met at 30 and they're still not married. I'm kind of just like, what are y'all... Are you waiting for something, or are you just never going to do it? Or I think it also just depends on, like, what the conversation is between y'all. Like, I feel like if we know that we want to get married, and if we've talked about wanting to get married, and if we talked about that ultimately being the goal, and we already have everything in place, if we've been together for 5 years, but we both know where this is going, then I'm going to start to wonder, like, what's the holdup? Like,
Does every
then
black
it kind
family?
of seems like you don't want to marry me. And if that's the case, then that's when you got to let me know. But if we constantly are talking about, I want to get married one day, I want to have kids, and it's year 4 and you still haven't proposed, then I feel like that's when like you start to wonder, like, okay, so where's this particular relationship going, and why aren't you proposing to me if that's clearly something that you want?
All right, so is marriage a prerequisite for kids to you?
For me personally, I feel like I would prefer to be married before I have kids, but I definitely think that there's multiple different co-parenting situations that can work outside of a marriage, but I also don't really want kids, period. So the only situation where I would have kids is if I get married and my man is like, oh, let's have a conversation about it. This is something that I really want, and we might have to come to a compromise, but I'm not really out here trying to get pregnant ever. If my man never wanted to have kids, then that would be fine with me.
Does every black family have like that aunt and uncle that's not married but they're together for a long period of time?
Yeah. All right. So yes.
That's a good question.
Everybody thought of one person just now. It's just
I'm
me.
thinking like, damn, that's kind of true.
I think every black family has at least one aunt and uncle where the uncle or the aunt isn't really your aunt or uncle, but they've been together for so long.
I just feel like for me, I'm not gonna like divulge into like my family's background with that, but I feel like when you get older like that, usually the one of the or both people have been married before, and they realize that it didn't work out just either for one reason or another, and they may not want to take a trip down that path again.
Yeah, right.
But my thoughts on marriage in general is I think in our generation, I'll say millennials, I think everything in society has come to us so quick with instant gratification, and we have like not the biggest attention span. So I think holding relationships of a certain length kind of starts to bore people, and that's where like marriages or long-term relationships start to flutter. Plus, I don't think, and this is of any age, any generation, I don't think you fully become an adult and learn who you are until age 25. Like, I think 25 is when you start to realize what you're good at, what you're not, even in relationships and just as a person. Yeah. And you start to address your bullshit. Like, I don't think getting married before that is healthy to me, because I don't think you fully know yourself yet. And I think after that, I just think the way society is set up, everything is so transparent. You see everything. And I don't know if people cheat now more than they did before percentage-wise, but you definitely get caught more because it's always out there. And there's a reason why divorce rate is higher than it's ever been, because I just think the way society is trending is just one that kind of separates the basis of what marriage is.
Something out.
Yeah, you're always going to find out something. And on top of that, marriage to some, I'm not saying this is my opinion, but marriage to some is a bad contract because all your finances are now tied. If this person is a great partner as romantically but has terrible credit, obviously that now affects you. So it's like, and then it's hard to get out of that. You can't annul marriages easily. You can't get divorces easily.
Exactly.
And it all costs money.
I don't think people, and not to cut you off, I don't think people actually think about it that way. They just, think, oh, marriage is the goal. I feel like, well, not a lot of people, but I feel like a majority of people want to get married. I want to get married. But like I said, I think about it differently. It's a business decision. It's a business decision. You're not just going to go into business with anybody. You outweigh the pros and cons. That's the point of dating. Now, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
But you feel me? It's a business decision. I'm not going to marry someone and I know your financial situation is not the best. Like, and I know I'm up. I'm not about to set myself up like that.
Yeah, and
see, my thing is like I was always like raised to think about that anyway. Like I feel like a lot of people get married and they don't think about those things. But like people get married and like throw all of these like big deal breakers to the wind just because they're in love. Like they don't care about the person's finances. They don't care about whether or not they want to have kids. They don't care about their political affiliations. They don't care about like what their goals are and where they see themselves going. They don't think about like investments. They just like, oh, I'm in love with this person and I'm old enough, so it seems like it's time. And then they just move forward. But like I'm gonna go back to what you said about like before 25, like you don't know who you are. I feel like that's true, but I feel like when you get married so young, there's a possibility that y'all might grow in the same direction and that y'all might grow as a couple and it might be fine. But I think that you're right. It's also a possibility that y'all might end up
in different places as you grow.
Just not going in the same place. You're not moving in the same direction. But at the same time, I wonder like how common is it really that like the indications that y'all were not going to be moving in the same direction were there? Because I feel like some people like you can see their trajectory based off of like what they're shooting for. Like if you're with somebody who like doesn't have any goals, who's not really ambitious, who's not motivated, and you're somebody who's always been a go-getter, then it's no surprise that in 10 years they're still where they're at and you've elevated your career. Like those kinds of things, it's like you could have saw that coming. People ignore those kinds of things.
I mean,
thinking that people are just going to change with time.
I feel like there's red flags whether it's marriage or just a general relationship. I think people do ignore red flags for whatever reason that they decide to do so. I can't really say why people do. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all been in a relationship with somebody where we've ignored a red flag that we knew we should not have ignored.
I think usually you think it's a one-off. At least for me personally, I'm speaking for myself. If I see a red flag and I ignore it, I usually just think it's not who that person is. It's just what happened in that moment.
Yeah,
and I don't want to be like,
judge run away
somebody
that fast.
Yeah, I don't want to judge somebody off one bad decision or one bad mistake. But then you start to see patterns where it's like that wasn't.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So are you saying that the second time they do it, that's when you're done?
It's not even that.
Yeah, I was about to say I can't give you a number, but what I can say is, certain things tie in together. So, for example, small things. You don't clean up after yourself. It leads to bigger things that a part of a big part of your major financial life may not be in order. Just based off the same trait. It's sloppy in the minor sense, and it's also sloppy in the major sense. But you ignored this because it's not that big a deal, but it turned into something that is a big deal.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, but I'm more so, as you said, the word patterns. I usually pay attention to patterns. I'm the type of guy, if I see something I don't like, I don't just call it off top. You feel me? I pay attention. I'm a very observant person. I don't say much. I pay attention. If I see a pattern, you constantly doing something, I mention it, and you keep doing something, it's embedded into your DNA. You feel me? And at this point, if it's a deal breaker for me, that's just it. But like I said, I pay attention to whoever I'm dealing with. Like it's OD, like on some crazy creep shit. Like I pay that much attention.
Mr. You from Netflix?
Nah, it's cause I'm real particular, yo. You feel me? Like I'm real. DC know I'm real particular about who I allow in my space, bro. And that's real. You feel me?
That's not a bad quality at all. I'm not knocking that. I think when it comes to marriage, I think marriage has been something that has been here before all of us, before our parents, before different things, and it's probably one of the only things that has never been revisioned to meet the times of where we are currently.
Yeah.
Marriage when it was first created,
and the Constitution.
Yeah,
and the Bible, low key, but that's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story.
I don't really like to talk religion or politics. But I think marriage is just one of those things that hasn't really been revised. And our generation, like you said, the millennials, we differ from what the status quo was before us. When you look at a lot of trends that were trending up and trending down from the generations before us to us, you're seeing a lot of flip-flops and things of that nature. I think that our generation is a little bit on both sides of the scale, whereas I think generations before that were kind of varied throughout. So I think you have a lot of people in our generation that want to get married, and then you have a lot of people in our generation that are perfectly fine with being single for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Do I think it's good either way? I mean, I think it's to each their own. I think you kind of know what you want to do. I don't think anybody wants to be, air quote, alone for the rest of their life. But some people have no problem shagging and dragging out here in these streets. Some people want somebody to go home to every night. I don't think there's an issue with either one of them. You decide what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm not saying one way is right or wrong either way. But Byron, what's your thoughts on this?
I speak on myself. Personally, when it comes to marriage, the idea or thought of being with one woman, in my case, for the rest of my life is kind of scary a little bit, low key. I'm not gonna lie, because
why you think that?
I know how I am. I know Rub was talking about how he's very particular. I think with myself, when it comes to relationships or being with somebody, I can get bored easy. So I can wake up one day and just be like, damn, I'm not feeling this. And I don't like leading people on or making people feel like they're not wanted or putting out fake energy. So if you're married, that's a business decision. That's a contractual agreement. That's a legal binding thing. You can't just wake up one day and be like, damn, I'm done. I can't do this no more. We done. You know what I mean? So I don't ever want to find myself in that place. But I do think, like Raul said, I honestly can't say I just want to be by myself forever, or I don't want to potentially a family or this or that. So it's kind of like a internal struggle where you're like, damn, this person cool as hell, but what if in like 2 years I don't really bang with him or something like that? So you just never know. Kind of like how I feel today may not be how I feel tomorrow in regards to this person. So you have people that you can see yourself potentially with, but then you're like, damn, it's a whole nother level when you put that ring on it and they take your last name or whatever. Y'all sharing credit, finances, or I'm down, she up, she down, I'm up. You know, it's a lot of things that go into marriage. The family aspect, which is their family. You know what I mean? It's little things that people probably shouldn't allow in a marriage sometimes, but they allow it.
I think the other scary thing is, for me, I'm not really driven by marriage, but I definitely want to have a kid. Like, that's an absolute certain for me. So it's kind of hard to form the bond that you can see somebody being a mother to your child that you also wouldn't see qualities in them being a life partner. Yeah,
exactly.
So I think it's a slippery slope between the two. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to marriage, by the way. Just throwing it out there. If it happens for me, it happens. But
see, he's single, ladies.
but if it does happen to me, it would be with me knowing the risk that goes into marriage, and it's a sound decision, and it's one that I confidently believe in.
And I definitely agree with that whole 25 point, because if I was to say I'm be one person at that age in my life, nah.
Man, what? That's when I started changing my mindset.
I was going to say, you really
meet
meet people, you in your career, you trying to get into your career, you figuring out what you got to do.
Thinking different.
You really have responsibilities.
I mean, so here's my idea, because I don't really like to put ages on things, and the reason I say that is because I believe that every individual grows at different aspects of their life. So I feel like I could be 25 and somebody else could be at 25, but I could be on life level 99 and they could be on life level 27. I also don't like to really judge the things that I've been through versus the things that somebody else has been through, because what could have been a scratch to me could literally be a fracture to you. So I don't really want to say that the age 25 is the age where you know yourself, because I feel like some people don't probably know themselves till they're 40.
I just gave
I know what you mean.
I mean, so biologically, the frontal cortex isn't fully developed until you.
Yeah.
But when you talk about marriage, yeah.
So, but when it comes to marriage, I mean, I like to really kind of think of it like this. Marriage first initiated a long time ago with families that wanted to intertwine power, money, and status. So marriage was first invented so that I own this part, you own this part. We
together,
business
everything.
decision, bro. That's what I'm saying.
And it's still to this day a business decision. And somewhere along the lines, people let their emotions
take over,
dictate what marriage is. And I'm not saying it's supposed to be all business, but business should be a bigger consideration than what I feel.
I'm
like
about to say,
is.
think about the old times. With I don't know if y'all watch Game of Thrones and stuff like that. When the families were merging, they were making power moves. This is a business decision. What's best for the family? You
the
feel
issue
me?
with that though is a lot of those marriages, both people also might not have actually loved each other and were just forced.
You look
into
at
that
places
marriage.
now, they still got arranged.
They still have
marriages.
arranged marriages.
Yeah,
But
But why nowadays they love each other but still end up cheating, and not even that. At least back in the day, they gained something.
So
Like
for another day, I do think that you can love somebody and cheat on them, but I'm not gonna have that conversation.
That is definitely a topic for another day.
but it's just things like they did things
Allegedly.
to gain kingdoms. And
It should
stuff
definitely
like
be at
that.
the forefront.
You feel me?
No question.
Yeah,
It's
Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Love don't pay the bills. That's
No
what I
matter
always
what,
say.
if
That's
they
what I
loved
always
each other
say.
or not, they moved each other's lives forward. You feel
Right.
me? I'm queen now. You're king. We own this.
So
You feel me?
I don't disagree with that, but I do think that love
People get
does
married
play
now
a
on
huge
the couch.
part.
You feel me?
Because I feel as though you can make the best business decision in a marriage and not be happy. And I feel like at the end of the day, you can. There are people across the globe that struggle, but happiness in their home might be what makes all of the struggle worthwhile. So I don't disagree with the fact that business isn't at the forefront that it needs to be, but I do feel as though love is still more important.
What's more important to you? Is it love or that financial security?
I feel like it really depends, because I feel like when it comes to emotions, like different people have different emotional needs, and I feel like some people really need to be in love to make it work, and some people just really don't. I feel like, and especially since I've never been in a long-term relationship before, and people always make it seem like, oh, like the longer that you're with somebody, it becomes more like a friendship, like the kind of love that you have for somebody changes.
I think it's opposite.
But I feel like
Big facts.
I feel like it's about more than just business, and it's about more than just being in love with somebody. It's about like, what do you want for your life? Like, you know, like, oh, I want to work 40 hours a week and I want my family to be the biggest component of that. That's not necessarily like a business decision, and that's not necessarily about like being in love. That's just about like, I want this kind of a life. And I feel like what's most important is that y'all are on the same page when it comes to like the big things in regards to like what kind of life you want to live and what kind of life you want to build together. Because finances and emotions are only like, they're two huge pieces of it. But you can have a lot of money, you can be in love with somebody, but if the way that y'all work isn't the same, or if y'all values aren't the same, then it's still not going to work.
So I have a question for all four of you. If person A, if their forefront is love, and person B's forefront is financial stability, do you think that marriage can work?
I think it can work only under certain
Yeah,
circumstances.
I'm gonna say there has to be some type of middle ground.
Yeah, I think if the person that is focused on the financial gain has that in their partner, and they at least have enough of a emotional connection to want to build on that, then yes, it can work.
Yeah.
But
It's all about willingness to try. As some people, not to cut you off, some people nowadays are just so stuck in their ways,
yeah,
and there is no middle ground. It's I want this, and forget
all
what you
about
want.
compromise.
Yeah, you feel me? You have to be
Gotta
able to
humble yourself
compromise.
to an degree.
And nowadays,
On both
nobody wants to. This is what I want in a man. If a man don't have this, like
men, like honestly speaking, like men, we always say we want a woman that's submissive, but sometimes men, we gotta sometimes look at the woman's perspective too,
Yeah.
and submit to them. So it's just a two-way street.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street.
it has to be a compromise.
I like aggressive women. Shoot your shots, ladies.
what do you think
street.
about your own question?
He'll say that.
Me personally, I think it depends. I think if the woman's forefront is love, I think it can sometimes get really difficult because women are extremely emotional from the get-go. So if a woman is literally looking for love in their relationship and the man is the one that is looking more for financial stability, I think they may have a rocky road in regards to it. I feel as though if it's the other way around, I think that they have a better suitable kind of situation. Not saying that men aren't emotional or that it can't still work either way, but I just feel as though that one dynamic does have the ability to kind of be a little bit more explosive than the other way around.
But I just feel like just because something is like the most important thing to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that like the other thing is something that you're just gonna like completely disregard. Like, I mean, of course, if I do end up married, I want to be in love with my husband, but I'm also never gonna be broke.
Okay, so I have a question.
I'm not gonna marry somebody that I don't like, but I'm also not willing to like make poor financial decisions whether I'm in love or not. Like, I feel like if you in a relationship prioritize love, but when you're single, like you're still getting to the bag and you're still making sure that you're secure, like those things could very easily like come in and tie together perfectly.
So what's the difference between marriage and a long-term relationship where y'all living together, y'all doing everything together, y'all building each other's lives up, y'all handling each other's, financially?
Does that piece of paper matter?
Yeah, I was gonna say, does that ring
And piece of
solidify or that legal document solidify everything? Like, what's the difference? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I feel like to me it's like if we're married, then it means that we're making a commitment to stay together. I feel like if you're just in a relationship, you can leave at any time. And I mean, I guess some people
You can leave a marriage at any time.
Them and their partner have made that kind of a commitment and that they have that kind of an agreement without it. But to me, it's just like I feel like if we're married, then we're agreeing to like work through all of our problems no matter what. If we're in a relationship, even if we do have a life together, if there's like no sort of like legal documentation, if we don't, and especially if y'all don't have kids, then it's like, what is our incentive to really be together?
So you would take your husband back if he cheats? That's what you're saying?
I feel like that's all circumstantial. Like, if my husband cheats on me, that's different than my husband having an affair. Like, if you're having an affair for 2 years and you're constantly lying to me, putting my health at risk and really jeopardizing our family, that's completely different than you kissing a stripper at your best friend's bachelor party. Like, cheating happens on a spectrum, and I also feel like the way that you feel after you do it is a big thing. Like, if you cheat and you don't feel remorseful, that's completely different than, like, you cheating and me seeing a change in you and me seeing a recommitment to our relationship. So, it's like, people always make it seem like cheating is just something where it's like every situation is the same, but it's like the circumstances under which it happens and the way that you react afterwards make all the difference.
So if you're with a dude for 7 years and he cheats on you for a year, is that different than if you're married to a dude for 5 years and he cheats on you for a year?
I think that it's all circumstantial, but like if everything else is similar and the only thing is like if we're together or if we're married, then if we're married, I feel like I would definitely think twice about leaving, because it's like at that point, like we've agreed that like sickness and health, whatever our problems are, we're going to work towards it. Like if in both situations the man is like, okay, yeah, you know what, I fucked up, I really want to make this work and I want to like recommit to our relationship. If we're just together and like we're not married, it would probably be an easier decision for me to just walk out. Because I'd be like,
do you think men can just have one box for the rest of their life? Because that's the question I have for myself.
But I also feel like once you get older, like your attitudes towards sex change, and because I'm only 24, like I have no idea if like by the time I'm 40, I'm gonna be like.
I heard as you get older, your sexual awareness comes out more.
Women's does. I heard men's decreases.
And they make Viagra. Fuck it.
So I have a question.
Like that blue pill. You
So
know?
if if you're at a point where you if you're trying to get sponsored by a Rhino
But
from
you
a
know
gas
what, though?
station,
Let
oh
me
really?
answer that question first, though. Like the one about like
GNC.
can men have one box for the rest of their life? I feel like the experience is different when you're in a long-term relationship with somebody, and if you just like smashing somebody on the side. Like I feel like the way that you are intimate with the partner that you've been with, that you're comfortable with, that y'all are willing to try new things and like talk to each other about like what you like, what you don't like, it should be way different than like you just like randomly meeting some random girl at a bar and like y'all.
I'm going to 100% disagree with that. And you want to know why I'm going to 100% disagree with that? I'm going to disagree with that for the simple fact that people do not talk about what they like about sex.
That's a fact.
Men and women have a horrible design about talking to each other.
Like a woman will lie to a man for years that she's enjoying it sexually, but it could be whack as hell, and y'all know y'all do that, and y'all be faking.
So I feel.
Well, first of all,
no.
I don't do that.
We don't need to go into that.
Oh, you don't think that's good? That's good.
I feel like
She's different.
Make orgasms great again.
I've heard stories, bro. She's different. We don't need to get.
You'll get up and tell a Negro.
Stop. Like you cannot tell me that like if you're married to somebody, you're not gonna consistently pursue having honest conversations about your sex life.
But you should have had that honest conversation before you got married.
Like,
so you can't tell me that getting married is what makes you have that conversation where you've gotten up to this married point without having that conversation.
I feel like my biggest fear.
Like the marriage that happens. I feel like it's once you decide that this is the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, y'all need to have a conversation about what it is that y'all are.
Why would that be the person you want to spend if him or her is not satisfying you sexually? Why is marriage even on the table at this point?
I agree with that.
You feel me?
I agree with that.
Like the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. If you were in a relationship with somebody, and if you are like, okay, this is somebody that I'm interested in pursuing a relationship with, then that should be a conversation that you have.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
but
until the rest of their life,
until they satisfy you, marriage is off the table.
Where y'all are having that conversation and where y'all are consistently like finding new ways to please each other, then I don't think that it's unrealistic.
What if that way to please each other is with another woman? He wants a threesome.
That's not cheating, then.
I got a question. Would you give it? So if you get to a point where you don't want to do it, would you give your man a hall pass?
No.
Go ahead, DC, real quick. I ain't
It's straight fast. DC ain't even had nothing to say.
No, I did.
I was about to say. Go ahead.
I was about to say.
You was trying to get in.
I was about to say my biggest fear about getting married is finding out that person is not really who they were when you were dating them. If some people see marriage as a goal or an end game, they will try their absolute best, and some succeed at making you believe they're a person that they really are not.
And then it's a wrap.
And it's hard to get out of that situation. And that includes sex. When y'all was dating, she was all kinds of freaky. You getting your dick sucked in the backseat of the car, pulling up at the
while you driving.
Yeah. All that's great.
Wherever you want it, you got it.
Exactly. Then
Now
you get married. You got sex.
Sleepy.
I had a long day at week
with the bonnet on.
You get side sex on the bed every quarter once you get your bonus from work. That's the only time you get laid. And it always.
Speaking of that, hey ladies, Christmas coming up.
Oh my God, man!
Yeah, Christmas coming up, holidays.
There you go.
Don't give that man the same pussy you gave him for Thursday night football. After, don't give him that. I don't care if you dress it up in the best Victoria's Secret you ever seen in your life.
Same two moves.
Pussy is not a gift.
The same two moves too. You ain't learned nothing new.
Hold on. If your chick learns something new, where do you think she learned that from?
You feel me? Man, yo, the same.
Got some explaining to do.
Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I think my final thought is this. I feel like whether you believe that like you want to get married or whether you're just in a long-term relationship, like you need to be with somebody that you can have like honest conversations with. Like you need to be with somebody where like if you're really like in a serious relationship, like there can't be any topics that are off limits. Like y'all need to be intentional about having these kind of conversations, because whether you want to get married or not, it's like life is too short to be with somebody that like you lying to about whether or not the sex is good, or like you lying to them about what kind of person you are or what you want for your life. Like bottom line, if you can't trust the person that she wants to be honest with you, then like it's just not gonna work. Period.
I will say communication is key, but just as well as I said, like I feel as though our generation has some pluses and minuses. I think communication is one of the biggest minuses of our generation. I feel as though all of the ways that we have the ability to communicate have decreased the amount of communication we actually have in key situations.
I think that's only interpersonal.
That's why I said. That's why I said that.
Yeah.
Because we have so many ways to communicate externally, the internal communication that has to be had on a serious basis sometimes does suffer.
But I mean, hey, we would never know because we don't know if our parents' generation struggled in communication as well. I just think back then society was so different and
You had no choice but to talk to the person.
Yeah, I mean, it was so.
Or talk to them.
or not even,
They
not
wasn't.
even
They
that.
wasn't sick. But I'm saying though,
I was
because
gonna get to the women's rights side of it. Women couldn't even stand up for themselves like they can today. So it's not even the same type of dynamic.
I don't
And
even mean
that's-
that though. What I mean is, how many times have you been laying next to a chick or laying next to a dude, and both of y'all just on your phones on social media,
Fact, not even saying nothing to each other.
How many times have you gone out and everybody's just on their phones? I feel as though communication isn't what it used to be. But like you said, we can't really say what it used to be because we weren't there.
But we know.
But I have to
definitely
believe that it
wasn't-
has to be better than what it is
definitely
currently. Yeah.
Back then, they talked to each other when they could. Like, hit me on the beeper. Oh, I know I need to call Shorty. When I get to a payphone, I'll call her. It wasn't so much.
when I get home.
I can call him
That's
right
why
now.
you. That's
feel
also
me?
why you didn't get caught up. back
Yeah,
in the day,
you
bro.
feel me? That's all it is. Yeah.
That's what I think. Cheating probably the percentage wise is probably the same. It's just you have so many different cameras and smartphones and ways of communication.
All these
that you get
social
caught up.
medias,
We
your
all
girl
agree
got
that
your password.
We all agree though that women cheat more than men, right?
Women
Yeah.
cheat better than men. I don't know if they cheat more.
I
think they cheat more.
I think they cheat the same. Women and men cheat the same. It's just women get caught less.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
And when women cheat, it's just like, it hurt more.
Women cheat because it's usually more
You-
conniving.
yeah.
Yeah.
You'll never
When a
know.
woman cheat, it's to hurt you.
Yeah,
it's
it
to
is.
hurt you, bro.
And it's on some, I feel like it's more so emotional as to where guys,
We just
you
Sometimes
just
you just
want,
wanna
you
get
hit something.
your
Yeah,
dick licked.
that's all it is.
Get
It's
your dick
just,
licked.
Yeah, my thing is, I feel like a big part of that is just like, I feel like very rarely do like I see a man and I'm like, if I'm in a relationship, it's like very rare that like I see a man and I'm like, ooh, I want to have sex with him. Like it usually has to be like more than just like, oh, this person is attractive.
Yeah.
I want to see what the dick is like. Whereas with men, it's like, oh, she look good. I
You
wanna see
fetish.
what the-
yeah, see, that's the difference. That's why when y'all cheat, y'all be like, oh,
It's a reason. It's a
it-
legit.
it's a-
that's the
It's an
difference.
emotional. It's something lacking.
Yeah,
That's
something
not.
that's-
That's the
Emotional.
difference between when men and women cheat. I'm
We
not gonna
going for
say
the
in
sex.
all
We ain't
cases,
trying to leave with the shit.
but majority cases, men cheat just because Shorty got some big titties.
And we coming home to you,
feel
that
me?
night. We ain't going home with her. We laying next to you after we do it.
Yeah, when y'all
Allegedly,
cheat,
'cause
y'all
some of
be
these niggas be spending the night.
well, first of all this is alleged.
allegedly.
I haven't had a girlfriend in a long time, and when I did, I never cheated, and that's my
As
story.
Raul
I'm
said,
sticking
he's
to it.
single, ladies.
But no, like when women cheat, it's like emotional. Y'all be telling the nigga about your life story,
And they listen to you. Oh, I'm gonna give them some
Yeah, you feel
Calling
me?
that nigga
Like
zaddy.
yeah, like telling them about your husband. Like when men cheat, they don't be telling them what's going on with the wife. You feel me? Y'all be
I would disagree because some men definitely do.
I don't know what they do because black men don't cheat.
You hear this?
Exactly.
A great
Black men don't
black
cheat.
men
A
don't
faithful
cheat,
black
you know?
male here.
I mean, I do think that when women cheat, it's a lot more emotion behind it, whether it's out of spite, out of just not getting something, or just being emotionally deprived
It
in
is,
their
bro.
current relationship. I do think that a dude will a chick hit on him, or he just saw a fat ass in this corner.
It be like
and he's
that.
just
The
like-
hen dog kicking, boy.
Yo,
So you just
Allegedly.
feeling away. You feeling away.
I was
you
about to
like-
say I
Allegedly.
can't.
You get that fresh haircut, and you feel like
That's
a man
what
when you walk
that
through.
really is what it is. If you got alcohol and a fresh haircut,
haircut.
that's a dangerous combination of events. That's just a bad series of events that leads to some unfortunate man's bravado.
Yeah.
Is the best way I can put that.
Well, I think that's all we got for this week on Allegedly. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming back.
Oh, no problem.
We'll definitely have you back on. For Riles, DC, and Rel, BKD. Allegedly, the show's over. We gone.
Trust.